The great chamber of Nexus Prime stretched out like a metal cave filled with stars. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in curved rows, their forms as different as the worlds they came from. Some breathed air, others floated in tanks of strange gases. A few existed as pure energy, their thoughts translated into words by machines older than human civilization. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the only human in a room full of creatures who had mastered space travel when Earth was still covered in ice. The Galactic Council met once every solar cycle to discuss matters that affected all worlds. Today's topic made Elena's stomach tight with worry. Earth wanted to join the Federation as a full member, not just the junior partner they had been for the past 50 years. "The floor recognizes the delegate from Zephyr Prime," announced the speaker, a tall being whose skin looked like living crystal. The Zephyrian delegate rose from his seat, his crystal body catching the chamber's light and throwing rainbows across the walls. When he spoke, his voice rang like bells, but the words cut like knives. "Honored Council, we gather today to consider Earth's request for full membership. I must speak plainly. These humans are children playing with toys they barely understand." Laughter rippled through the chamber, not the warm laughter of friends, but the cold sound of beings who thought themselves superior. "Consider their technology," the Zephyrian continued. "They still use fusion drives that we abandoned 10,000 years ago. Their fastest ships take months to cross distances we travel in days. Their largest vessels would serve as mere shuttles in any civilized fleet." Elena kept her face calm, even as anger burned in her chest. She had heard these words before in smaller meetings and private conversations, but hearing them spoken before the entire galaxy hurt in a way she had not expected. A new voice joined the mockery. The Hive Queen of the Sectari stood on 6 legs, her insect-like head turning to address the council. When she spoke, clicking sounds came from her mouth while a translation device made her words clear. "The Sectari have observed human space for decades," she said, her compound eyes glittering. "They field perhaps 1,000 vessels across their entire territory. My personal hive fleet contains twice that number. How can we consider such a small force worthy of our alliance?" More laughter filled the chamber. Elena noticed that not all the delegates joined in. The quiet Altarians sat in silence, their large eyes unreadable. The plant-like Verdani swayed gently, saying nothing. But their silence was lost in the noise of those who found humanity amusing. Admiral Kethavar of the Koran Empire stood next. His forearms spread wide as he spoke, his scarred face twisted in what might have been a smile on a creature bred for war. "Friends, I mean no insult to our human guest," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But let us speak of military matters. The Koran Navy protects 7 sectors with a fleet of 12,000 warships. Earth's entire military could not defend a single system against a determined attack." The Admiral's words brought nods from many delegates. The galaxy was not a safe place, and military strength meant survival. "How can we grant full membership to a species that depends on others for protection?" Kethavar asked. "What happens when the next crisis comes? Do we risk our own ships to defend those too weak to defend themselves?" Elena felt the chamber's mood shifting. What had started as mockery was becoming something darker. These beings were not just laughing at humanity anymore. They were questioning whether humans deserved to exist as equals in their galaxy. The speaker gestured for quiet. "The floor recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of Earth." Elena stood slowly, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon her. She had prepared for this moment, knowing it would come, but the reality of standing alone before the combined powers of the galaxy was harder than any simulation. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Earth thanks the Council for considering our request." She paused, looking around the room. Some delegates leaned forward, expecting her to defend humanity's achievements or beg for membership. Others had already turned away, their interest lost. "We have listened carefully to your concerns," Elena continued. "The Council's position is clear. You judge us by our ships, our weapons, our technology. By these measures, you find us wanting." The Zephyrian delegate's crystal form flickered, perhaps surprised by her calm tone. "Earth accepts the Council's judgment," Elena said simply. Silence fell over the chamber. This was not the response anyone had expected. Where were the protests? The arguments about human potential? The promises to do better? Elena remained standing, waiting. The speaker finally cleared his throat. "Ambassador, do you wish to withdraw Earth's application for membership?" "The application stands," Elena replied. "But Earth recognizes that the Council has made its decision. We will respond accordingly." Something in her tone made several delegates shift in their seats. The Altarian's large eyes focused on her with sudden intensity. Even the plant-like Verdani stopped swaying. "The Council has taught us much today," Elena continued. "You have shown us how the galaxy sees Earth, how you measure worth, how you judge strength." She looked directly at the Zephyrian delegate, then at Admiral Kethavar, then at the Hive Queen. "Earth will remember these lessons." With that, she sat down. No anger, no threats, no diplomatic protests. Just a quiet promise that somehow felt more dangerous than any outburst. The formal vote came quickly. Earth's application for full membership was denied by a margin of 7-1. Only the Altarians voted in favor, their reasons unexplained. As delegates began filing out of the chamber, many seemed pleased with the day's work. They had put the upstart humans in their place without breaking any laws or treaties. Earth would remain a junior member, dependent on others for protection, grateful for whatever scraps of technology the advanced races chose to share. Elena gathered her papers slowly, in no hurry to leave. The chamber emptied around her until only a few beings remained. "Ambassador," came a voice behind her. Elena turned to find Zevtar, the Altarian representative. His large eyes held an expression she could not read. "My people voted for your application," he said quietly. "We believe the galaxy would benefit from Earth's full participation." "Thank you," Elena replied. "Though I fear the matter is settled." Zevtar tilted his head in the Altarian gesture of uncertainty. "Perhaps. But my people have a saying. The quiet lake may hide the deepest currents. Your response today was interesting." Elena smiled, the first genuine emotion she had shown all day. "The Altarians are wise. Perhaps that wisdom will serve you well in the days to come." As she walked toward the chamber's exit, Elena's footsteps echoed in the empty space. Behind her, the lights began dimming as maintenance systems prepared the room for its next use. She paused at the doorway and looked back one final time. Tomorrow, news of Earth's rejection would spread across the galaxy. The other races would return to their worlds, secure in their superiority, confident in their judgment. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. Elena stepped into the corridor, her mind already turning to the coded message she would send home, a single phrase that would change everything. "The Council has spoken. Begin Phase 2. The galaxy slept peacefully that night, unaware that its quiet neighbor had just been given the greatest gift possible: permission to stop pretending. Admiral Kethavar stood before the great viewing window of his command station, watching the stars wheel slowly past as the orbital platform maintained its position above the Koran homeworld. The four-armed warrior felt satisfied with the previous day's work at the Council. The humans had been put in their place without bloodshed, which was more mercy than his ancestors would have shown. His aide approached with the morning reports, walking carefully on the metal deck. Young officers learned quickly not to make sudden movements around the Admiral. "Sir, the overnight patrol reports show normal activity across all sectors," the aide said, offering a datapad. "The human fleet maintains its usual defensive positions around their territory. No changes detected." Kethavar took the pad with one of his lower hands while keeping his eyes on the stars. The human ships were out there somewhere, probably celebrating their small victory of not being expelled from the Federation entirely. Their primitive sensors would never detect his spy ships watching them. "Any response from Earth to yesterday's vote?" he asked. "Nothing significant, sir. Their ships remain in standard patrol patterns. No unusual communications detected." The Admiral grunted. Humans were predictable. They would protest quietly through diplomatic channels, perhaps reduce their cooperation for a few years, then settle back into accepting their place as junior partners. It was the way of things. His satisfaction lasted exactly 47 minutes. The first alarm came at 0347 Standard Galactic Time. A harsh buzzing filled the command center as displays lit up with warning signals. "Admiral," called the communications officer from across the room. "Deep Space Monitoring Station THAC 7 has gone silent." Kethavar's four hands moved to different controls as he pulled up the tactical display. Station THAC 7 watched the border between Koran space and the human territory, one of a dozen such outposts scattered across the frontier. "Equipment failure?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They were transmitting normal status reports until 0344, then simply stopped. No distress signal, no indication of trouble." Before Kethavar could respond, another alarm joined the first. Then another. The command center filled with the sound of emergency signals as red lights flashed across multiple screens. "Sir, Station THAC 9 is not responding. THAC 12 has gone dark." "Sir." We've lost contact with the entire Outer Ring monitoring network. Kethvar's scarred face went pale. The Outer Ring consisted of 15 heavily armed stations positioned to watch all approaches to Quran space. They did not simply disappear. Launch immediate reconnaissance flights to all affected stations, he ordered. Full alert status for the home fleet. And get me a tactical assessment of human ship movements. The answer came back in less than 10 minutes and it made no sense. Sir, the tactical officer's voice cracked slightly as he spoke. The human fleet, it's gone. What do you mean, gone? The ships we were tracking yesterday, sir. All of them. They're not showing up on any sensors. Not destroyed, not moved, just gone. Kethvar stared at the tactical display. Where dozens of human ship signatures had appeared the day before, now there was only empty space. 3 sectors away, the Sectari Hive Queen received similar reports. Her compound mind processed information from thousands of scout drones scattered throughout local space. But the data made no sense. Human ships that had been clearly visible at midnight had vanished without trace by dawn. Her worker drones had been watching the human colony of New Geneva, counting the supply ships and defensive platforms that protected the million humans living there. Now the military vessels were simply gone, leaving only the civilian traffic that posed no threat to anyone. The Hive Queen's consciousness reached out to her subordinates across space, seeking answers. Had the humans developed some kind of cloaking technology? Her scouts would have detected the energy signatures. Had they fled to unknown space? Her sensors would have tracked their departure. But there was nothing. The human military had disappeared as completely as if it had never existed. On Zephyr Prime, the crystal beings faced the same impossible puzzle. Their telepathic abilities let them sense the minds of living creatures across vast distances, a skill that made them excellent spies and negotiators. But when they reached out toward human space, searching for the familiar patterns of human consciousness aboard their ships, they found only empty void. The Zephyrian delegate from the previous day's council session stood in his crystalline tower, his mind linked with others of his kind. Together they searched the galaxy for some sign of the vanished fleet. Perhaps they have hidden themselves in subspace, suggested one mind. Our sensors would detect the energy distortions, replied another. Could they have retreated to their home system? We would sense their presence there. Hour by hour, the search continued. The greatest telepathic minds in Zephyrian history joined the effort, their consciousness spreading like a web across the galaxy. They found merchant ships and exploration vessels. They sensed the minds of human colonists and researchers. But of the 1,000-ship fleet that had guarded human space, they found no trace. Emergency sessions convened on Nexus Prime as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Trillan hegemony reported the same phenomenon. The Valorian Republic confirmed the disappearance. Even the secretive Voidwalkers, who rarely spoke at council meetings, sent word that their deep space sensors showed no sign of human military vessels. Most disturbing of all was the report from the maintenance staff at Nexus Prime. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had not returned to her quarters after the council session. Her rooms were empty, her personal belongings gone. The only trace of her presence was a simple note left on the desk. Humanity thanks the Council for their instructive lesson in galactic politics. In the hours that followed, the greatest intelligence networks in the galaxy went to work. Corran spy ships swept through human space, searching for hidden bases. Sectari infiltrator drones examined every human world for signs of military buildup. Zephyrian telepaths probed the minds of human civilians, looking for knowledge of where their protectors had gone. They found nothing. Human civilians went about their daily lives as if nothing had changed. When questioned by hidden agents, they showed no signs of worry about their missing fleet. Some even seemed confused by the questions, claiming they had never seen more than a few patrol ships in their systems anyway. The Altarian delegate Zevtar stood alone in his private chamber, reviewing the day's reports. His large eyes reflected the data streams flowing across his screens, each one confirming the impossible truth. An entire fleet had vanished without triggering a single alarm, leaving behind no evidence of where it had gone or how it had disappeared. The humans had achieved something that violated every known law of physics and military doctrine. But perhaps more frightening was the reaction of the human civilians. They showed no fear, no concern for their missing protectors. Either they did not know what had happened, or they knew something the rest of the galaxy did not. Zevtar remembered Ambassador Vasquez's final words at the council. Earth will remember these lessons. At the time, They had sounded like empty diplomatic courtesy. Now they felt like a promise. Across the galaxy, military commanders struggled with the same question. If humanity could make 1,000 ships disappear without detection, what else might they be capable of? And more importantly, where were those ships now? The night brought no answers, only deeper mystery. In the darkness between stars, something had changed. The balance of power that had existed for thousands of years had shifted, and no one understood how. In the depths of space, where no sensors could reach and no minds could penetrate, something watched and waited. The galaxy's mightiest powers searched desperately for answers, never suspecting that they were being observed in return. The humans had vanished completely, but somewhere in the darkness, patient eyes were learning everything they needed to know about their former judges. The greatest hunt in galactic history began at dawn on the second day. Admiral HFY stood in the war room of his flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of over 2,000 Corran vessels. His four hands moved constantly across control surfaces as he directed the largest military operation his empire had ever launched. "Deploy Hunter Squadron 7 to the Centauri region," he commanded. "I want every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris larger than a shuttle examined. The humans are hiding somewhere and we will find them." His officers worked frantically at their stations, coordinating search patterns across dozens of star systems. The Corran Empire had pulled ships from every frontier, leaving their borders defended by skeleton crews. Finding the vanished human fleet had become their highest priority. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "long-range sensors are detecting Zephyrian ships entering the same search areas. Should we warn them off?" HFY's scarred face twisted into something between a snarl and a smile. "No, let them search. When we find the humans first, the crystal heads will see who deserves to rule this galaxy." But the Zephyrians had their own advantages in the hunt. On Zephyr Prime, 100 of their kind linked their minds together in the greatest telepathic search ever attempted. Their consciousness spread across space like invisible fingers, probing every corner of human territory for the mental signatures of the missing crews. The lead searcher, Zilton, felt the strain of the connection burning through his crystal body. Linking with so many minds at once pushed the limits of what their species could achieve. But the mystery of the vanishing fleet demanded extreme measures. "Expand the search to the outer rim territories," he projected to the others. "Perhaps they have fled beyond the borders of civilized space." One by one, the Zephyrian minds reached out further, their telepathic senses stretching across light years. They touched the consciousness of traders in distant markets, explorers mapping unknown worlds, even the primitive minds of animals on uninhabited planets. But of human military personnel they found nothing. The 1,000 ships and their crews had not just disappeared from normal space. They had vanished from the realm of thought itself. The Sectari took a different approach. The Hive Queen's vast consciousness controlled millions of tiny drones, each no larger than an insect but equipped with sensors capable of detecting molecular traces. She scattered these microscopic spies throughout human space, programming them to search for any chemical signature that might reveal where the ships had gone. Her compound mind processed thousands of data streams simultaneously as the drones spread through asteroid belts, space stations, and planetary atmospheres. They analyzed engine exhaust, searched for weapons residue, and examined the quantum signatures left behind by faster-than-light drives. The results were as puzzling as everything else. The drones found traces of human civilian vessels everywhere, but no sign that military ships had ever existed in these systems. It was as if the 1,000-ship fleet had been erased from history itself. On the fourth day of searching, something unprecedented happened. The Trillian hegemony, masters of temporal technology, offered to share their time-scanning capabilities with the other powers. The ancient race had perfected the ability to look backward through time, observing events that had already occurred. Delegations from across the galaxy gathered at the Trillian homeworld to witness the temporal scan. If the human ships had moved through normal space, the time viewers would reveal their path. The Trillian Temporal Council activated their greatest machine, a device that could peer through the layers of time like looking through clear water. Images formed in the air above the assembly, showing human space as it had appeared days before. The gathered delegates watched in silence as the scan revealed human ships in their normal patrol patterns. The image moved forward in time, showing the fleet's positions hour by hour through the day of the council meeting. Then, at exactly 23:47 Standard Time, the ships simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not moving away, but gone as completely as if they had never been there. The temporal scan showed empty space where 1,000-ton vessels had been moments before. "Impossible," whispered the Coran admiral. "Matter cannot simply disappear." The lead Trillan scientist studied the readings with ancient eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. "The quantum signatures are unprecedented," he admitted. "According to our instruments, these ships did not move through space or time. They appear to have stepped outside of reality itself." Word of the temporal scan results spread quickly through the galactic community. If the humans had developed technology that could remove objects from existence, what did that mean for galactic security? Could entire fleets be made to vanish? Could planets? The Altarian delegate Zevtar received the reports in his private chambers, his large eyes reflecting the data scrolling across his screens. Of all the galactic powers, his people were perhaps the most advanced scientifically, and he understood the implications better than most. Technology that could move objects outside normal space-time was theoretical at best. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for a species that still used primitive fusion drives, unless Tar pulled up the classified files his people had compiled on human technology over the past century. The Altarians prided themselves on their thorough intelligence gathering, and they had been watching Earth longer than most. The patterns were subtle, but once he knew what to look for, they became clear. Human fusion drives that were somehow more efficient than they should be. Communication arrays that transmitted data faster than quantum entanglement should allow. Defensive shields that deflected attacks using unknown principles. For the first time since the crisis began, Zevtar felt a chill of understanding. The humans had not suddenly developed incredible technology. They had been hiding it all along. Meanwhile, the search continued with increasing desperation. Joint task forces were formed as traditional enemies united in their shared fear. Coran warships flew alongside Sectari hive ships, their crews working together to scan every corner of known space. The Valorian Republic deployed their most advanced sensor networks, devices capable of detecting subatomic particles across interstellar distances. The results showed nothing but empty vacuum where the human fleet should be. On the 7th day, the first signs of panic began to show. Stock markets across the galaxy crashed as investors realized the implications of the vanishing fleet. If humans could make their ships disappear, what prevented them from doing the same to entire economies? Trade routes that passed through human space saw dramatic increases in security escorts. Merchant captains demanded military protection, fearing that the missing human warships might reappear without warning. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, but the great chamber that had echoed with laughter just days before was now filled with worried whispers and fearful glances. Delegates who had mocked human weakness now wondered if they had misjudged their quiet neighbors. The Zephyrian delegate's crystal form flickered nervously as he spoke. "Perhaps we should reconsider Earth's application for membership. If this is a demonstration of their capabilities..." Admiral Kethvar slammed one of his fists on the podium. "We do not negotiate with terrorists. If the humans think they can threaten us into submission, they will learn the price of defying the Coran Empire." But even as he spoke, the Admiral's voice carried less certainty than before. His massive fleet had searched for a week without finding any trace of the vanished ships. How could he threaten an enemy he could not locate? The Hive Queen of the Sectari raised a more practical concern. "The question is not whether we should fear them, but whether we can find them. Our combined forces represent the most advanced technology in the galaxy. If we cannot detect them, what hope do we have of defending ourselves?" Silence fell over the assembly. For 1,000 years, these species had been the masters of their galaxy, secure in their technological superiority. Now they faced the possibility that a race they had dismissed as primitive possessed capabilities beyond their understanding. As the session adjourned without resolution, delegates returned to their ships with heavy hearts. The great hunt would continue, but hope was fading. 9 days had passed since the human fleet vanished, and they were no closer to answers than when the search began. In the darkness between stars, patient observers recorded every move the galactic powers made. The search patterns, the technology deployed, the panic spreading through their ranks, all of it was noted, analyzed, and filed away for future use. The galaxy's hunters had no idea they had become the hunted. The 10th day brought answers that no one wanted to hear. Admiral Kethvar was reviewing search reports in his command center when his aide approached with unusual caution. The young officer's face was pale, and his hands shook slightly as he offered a data pad. "Sir, we have a situation in the Taros sector." Kethvar took the pad with one of his lower hands, his eyes scanning the information. At first glance, it appeared to be a routine sensor malfunction. Ships appearing and disappearing from scopes, readings that made no sense. Equipment failure, he asked, though something in his aide's expression suggested otherwise. No, sir. Fleet Commander Vextel confirms the readings. There are ships in the Taros sector that were not there an hour ago, ships that match no known design in our databases. The Admiral's four hands moved across his control panel, pulling up the tactical display. The Taros sector appeared on the screen, showing the positions of 3 Koran patrol squadrons. And there, scattered among them like phantoms, were contact signatures that had not existed moments before. Sir, the communications officer called from across the room. Fleet Commander Vextal is requesting immediate assistance. The unknown vessels are surrounding his force. Kethvar studied the tactical display more closely. 37 unknown contacts had appeared around Vextal's squadron, moving with impossible precision. Their approach patterns showed a level of coordination that spoke of advanced tactics and technology. Are they human ships? He demanded. Unknown, sir. The designs don't match anything in our records of human vessels, but what? Sir, the quantum signatures are similar to the readings we got from the vanished fleet. Before they disappeared, a chill ran through the command center as the implications became clear. The missing human ships had not just vanished. They had been transformed into something else entirely. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as the human fleet revealed itself. On Zephyr Prime, the crystal beings woke to find their homeworld surrounded by vessels that bent light around themselves, creating halos of distorted space that hurt to look at directly. The Zephyrian delegate who had led the mockery at the council stood on his tower's observation deck, his crystal form trembling as he watched the impossible ships hanging in his planet's sky. They had appeared silently during the night, bypassing every defense system without triggering an alarm. How many? He asked his aide, though his telepathic abilities had already counted them. 47 vessels in stable orbit, sir. Our sensors cannot penetrate their hulls to determine crew size or weapons capacity. The delegate reached out with his mind, trying to touch the consciousness of the beings aboard those ships. What he found made his crystal body flicker with shock. Human minds, yes, but changed somehow. Where once their thoughts had been simple and direct, now they carried depths that his telepathy could not fully explore. It was like trying to read a book written in dimensions his mind could not comprehend. The Sectari homeworld faced its own impossible sight. The Hive Queen's compound consciousness processed the data from millions of sensors, all confirming the same unbelievable truth. Human ships hung in her planet's atmosphere, their hulls reflecting her cities like dark mirrors. But these were not the primitive fusion-driven vessels her scouts had observed for decades. These ships moved through her atmosphere like living things, their hulls rippling with energy patterns that her scientists could not explain. They had appeared without sound, without disturbance, as if they had materialized from another dimension. Her worker drones swarmed around the vessels, taking readings and measurements. The data they returned made no sense. The ships existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent from normal space. According to her instruments, they were there and not there at the same time. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in emergency session when Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the chamber's sealed doors. Not opened them, not unlocked them, walked through solid metal as if it were air. The assembled delegates sat in stunned silence as she took her seat calmly, arranging her papers as if nothing unusual had occurred. Her appearance was exactly as it had been 10 days before, but something fundamental had changed. The woman who sat before them was recognizably human, yet somehow more than human. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber without the aid of amplification systems. "I believe you requested a demonstration of human technological advancement." The Trillan representative, ancient beyond measure, was the first to find his voice. "How did you enter this chamber?" "Our security systems registered no breach." Elena smiled, the expression warm and somehow terrifying. "Did you really believe that beings who went from first flight to interstellar travel in barely a century had learned nothing about phase-shifted matter?" She gestured to the air above her, and holographic images appeared without any visible projector. The displays showed scenes from across the galaxy. Koran fleets surrounded by sleek human vessels, Zephyrian cities reflecting the shadows of ships that should not exist, Sectari drones swarming around hulls that bent space itself. "You mocked our fusion drives," Elena continued, her tone conversational. "Did it never occur to you to wonder how fusion technology could be so efficient?" How ships that should take months to cross interstellar distances could arrive exactly when needed. The Zephyrian delegate's crystal form was flickering rapidly now, a sign of extreme distress among his kind. You have been deceiving us. Our technology is exactly what we showed you, Elena interrupted. Quantum phase shift drives disguised as fusion reactors. Dimensional translocation systems camouflaged as conventional thrusters. We never lied to you. We simply allowed you to see what you expected to see. Admiral Kethavar stood on 4 shaking legs. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such advanced technology. Would they? Elena asked. Your sensors see what they are programmed to see. When we projected the energy signature of a primitive fusion drive, your instruments dutifully recorded a primitive fusion drive. When we transmitted at frequencies that mimicked your own technology, you assumed we were using your own technology. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Around the chamber, delegates began to understand the scope of humanity's deception. You studied us for decades, Elena continued. Cataloged our ships, analyzed our communications, counted our fleets. But you never asked the right question. You never wondered how a species could develop faster than light travel in just 2 centuries when it took your civilization's millennia to achieve the same feat. The Altarian delegate Zevtar leaned forward, his large eyes reflecting understanding and fear in equal measure. How long have you possessed this technology? Which technology? Elena asked. Phase shifting. About 800 years. Dimensional translocation. 600. Quantum consciousness projection. 400. She smiled again. We've been watching your civilization since before some of you achieved spaceflight. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded explanations, others threats. A few called for immediate military action. Elena sat calmly through it all, waiting for the noise to die down. You're afraid, she said when silence finally returned. Good. Fear will help you understand your situation. What situation? Demanded the Hive Queen's representative. The situation where you discover that the quiet species you've been ignoring for the past 50 years is the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The situation where you realize that every military secret, every technological advantage, every strategic plan has been observed and catalogued by beings you considered beneath your notice. Elena stood slowly, her movement somehow carrying more weight than it should. You wanted to know what happened to our fleet. It's exactly where it has always been. You just couldn't see it because we didn't want you to. The holographic displays shifted, showing new images. Human ships phasing in and out of visibility around alien worlds, their crews moving through dimensions that normal sensors could not detect. The galaxy's great powers had been surrounded for centuries without knowing it. Every war you fought, every crisis you've faced, every decision you've made, Elena said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. We've been there, watching, learning, occasionally preventing your conflicts from destroying entire sectors. New holograms appeared, showing battles that had never happened, invasions that had mysteriously failed, natural disasters that had been mysteriously averted, all bearing the subtle signature of human intervention dating back hundreds of years. You see, honored delegates, humanity has been your guardian for far longer than you've known we existed. We've prevented 17 major wars, stopped 43 planetary extinctions, and diverted countless asteroids that would have ended civilizations. The truth hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. They had not been the masters of their galaxy. They had been children playing in a nursery, protected by guardians they were too proud to notice. What do you want? Whispered the Zephyrian delegate, his crystal form barely maintaining cohesion. Elena tilted her head, appearing genuinely puzzled by the question. Want? We want exactly what we have always wanted. A peaceful galaxy where civilizations can grow and develop without destroying themselves or each other. She gestured to the galaxy changed overnight. Though not in ways that most beings could see, on the surface everything appeared normal. Trade ships followed their usual routes between worlds. Diplomatic communications continued their formal dance of politics and protocol. The great powers maintained their borders and conducted their business as they had for centuries. But underneath this facade of normalcy, a fundamental shift had occurred in how the galaxy understood itself. In the Quran Empire, Admiral Kethavar stood before his war council, his 4 hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the stars. His massive fleet had returned to its home ports, but the Admiral's certainty had not returned with them. The intelligence reports are confirmed, sir, his aide said quietly. Every major engagement in Koran history shows signs of subtle human intervention. the Battle of Thakkar Prime, where our enemies mysteriously retreated just as they achieved victory. The plague of 2847, which ended exactly when our civilization reached the breaking point, the asteroid that should have destroyed our homeworld but somehow missed. Kethvar's scarred face remained impassive, but inside, his worldview crumbled a little more with each revelation. The Koran Empire prided itself on strength, on earning its place in the galaxy through conquest and military might. To learn that they had been protected like children was almost unbearable. "How many times?" he asked. 17 major interventions over the past 4 centuries, sir. Possibly more that we haven't identified yet." The admiral turned away from the window, his expression haunted. "Assemble the fleet commanders. We need to discuss our new reality." Similar conversations were taking place across the galaxy. On Zephyr Prime, the crystal beings gathered in their great amphitheater, their linked consciousness struggling to process the implications of humanity's revelation. The delegate who had led the mockery at the council spoke for all of them, his crystal form dim with shame. "We have been fools, cosmic fools, blinded by our own arrogance." The collective consciousness rippled with agreement. The Zephyrians had always prided themselves on their telepathic abilities, their capacity to read the thoughts and intentions of other beings. Yet for centuries they had been unable to perceive the true nature of their human neighbors. "How is it possible?" asked a younger mind. "Our telepathy should have revealed their deception." "Should it?" replied an ancient consciousness, one that had witnessed the rise of several civilizations. "Or did we simply see what we expected to see? When we touched human minds, we found thoughts that seemed simple and direct. We never questioned whether those thoughts might be carefully crafted facades." The gathering fell silent as they contemplated this possibility. If humans could disguise their technology, could they also disguise their consciousness? The implications were staggering. On the Sectari homeworld, the Hive Queen's compound mind wrestled with similar questions. Her species had evolved to gather and process vast amounts of information, to see patterns that others missed. Yet she had missed the greatest pattern of all. Her worker drones brought reports from across Sectari space, each one revealing another example of mysterious interventions that could now be attributed to humanity. Failed invasions where enemy fleets inexplicably broke down. Natural disasters that struck with convenient timing to end wars before they could escalate. Plagues that burned themselves out just before reaching critical population centers. The Hive Queen's consciousness expanded, reviewing centuries of data with new understanding. Humanity had not been passive observers in galactic affairs. They had been active participants, shaping events from the shadows with a skill that bordered on artistry. "Perhaps," she thought to her subordinates, "we have been watching the wrong species all these years. We believed we were the master strategists of this galaxy. It appears we were merely competent students." The revelation hit different species in different ways. Some, like the warlike Korans, struggled with the blow to their pride. Others, like the scientific Altarians, found themselves fascinated by the implications of hidden technology. Zevtar sat in his laboratory, surrounded by displays showing human ship designs that his computers now analyzed with new algorithms. When viewed through the lens of advanced physics rather than primitive engineering, the patterns became clear. What had appeared to be crude fusion reactors were actually elegant quantum field generators. Simple communication arrays revealed themselves as sophisticated dimensional transceivers. Basic defensive shields showed characteristics of technology that existed only in theoretical papers. "Magnificent," he whispered to himself. "They have been teaching us without us knowing it." As the days passed, evidence of humanity's hidden influence emerged from archives across the galaxy. The Valorian Republic discovered that their greatest technological breakthroughs had coincided with mysterious equipment failures in their research facilities, failures that forced them to develop new approaches that were somehow more efficient than their original plans. The Trillin hegemony found references in their ancient texts to helpful strangers who appeared during times of crisis, offering advice and assistance before vanishing without explanation. References that dated back thousands of years, long before humanity was supposed to have achieved spaceflight. The plant-like Verdani, who rarely spoke in council sessions, revealed that their agricultural specialists had been receiving subtle guidance for centuries. Crop rotations suggested by visiting researchers, soil treatments recommended by traveling scientists, weather prediction algorithms shared by passing traders, all from beings they now realized had been human agents. As the scope of humanity's influence became clear, a new question emerged. What did they want in return? The answer came in the form of increased cooperation between species that had been enemies for generations. Wars that had simmered for decades suddenly found peaceful resolutions. Trade disputes that had threatened to escalate into conflicts were settled through compromise. Border tensions eased as species discovered mutual interests they had not noticed before. It was subtle, almost invisible unless one knew what to look for. But the patterns were there for those who cared to see them. Humanity was using their revealed influence not for conquest or domination, but to encourage the galaxy's species to work together. On Nexus Prime, a new Galactic Council session convened 3 weeks after the revelation. The Great Chamber felt different now, charged with an undercurrent of uncertainty and grudging respect. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was not present, but her absence spoke louder than any speech. The empty chair reserved for Earth served as a reminder of what the galaxy had lost through its own arrogance. The Altarian delegate Zevtar stood to address the assembly. Fellow beings, we gather in the shadow of our own ignorance. We have learned that our understanding of this galaxy was fundamentally flawed. We believed ourselves to be the advanced civilizations, the elder races, the rightful leaders of known space. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that showed a mixture of shame, fear, and curiosity. We were wrong. We have been students all along, taught by teachers we were too proud to recognize. The question now is, what do we do with this knowledge? The Quran representative, a younger officer who had replaced Admiral Kethvar, spoke first. The Empire suggests we accept reality. Humanity has proven their superiority through action, not words. If they wish to guide galactic affairs, perhaps we should listen. The Zephyrian delegate's crystal form flickered with agreement. Our telepaths have analyzed the long-term patterns of human intervention. Every action has served to preserve life and promote stability. Their guidance has served us well, even when we did not know we were receiving it. But what of our independence? Asked the Sectari representative. Are we to become subjects of a human empire? Zevtar shook his head. The evidence suggests otherwise. If humanity wanted to rule us, they could have revealed their power centuries ago. Instead, they chose to remain hidden, to guide without governing. This speaks to a wisdom we have yet to understand. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The galaxy's powers voted unanimously to extend a formal invitation to humanity to rejoin the Galactic Federation, not as junior members but as senior partners with full authority over matters of galactic security. The response came the next day, delivered through channels that no one could trace. A simple message appeared simultaneously on every government communication network in the galaxy. Humanity appreciates the Council's revised offer, but respectfully declines formal membership. We will continue our traditional role as observers and occasional advisors. The galaxy's future belongs to all its children, not to any single species. The message was signed simply, the Guardians. As the weeks turned to months, the galaxy settled into its new normal. Human ships remained visible in their traditional patrol routes, appearing no different than they had before the revelation. But now everyone knew that these visible vessels were just the tip of an iceberg, whose true size could only be guessed at. Trade flourished as species that had been suspicious of each other found common ground.